The late 80s and early 90s were bloody years in KwaZulu-Natal. South Africans became almost immune to daily bulletins of massacres and running battles in especially the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands. Our next report looks at the people affected by this turmoil and how they face the future.
The South African public was led to believe that political violence in KwaZulu-Natal was historical faction fighting along tribal lines, part of the spirit and nature of the Zulu, Shaka's children.
And we'll do everything to preserve the Zulu throne, which was founded by King Shaka.
The recent Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearings on the seventh-day war in KwaZulu-Natal Midlands spoke of a far more sinister route to the beautiful region's troubled past.
Extend an invitation to the Commission. I would like to invite you to come to the upper part of the valley to see what the place looks like. You should go past Eden and to the upper valley, KwaMnyandu, KwaShange, Gezubuso. Even today, you can see the aftermath of the violence that took place in 1990.
Now what happened here is that in 1987, around about the time of the floods, which were in September, a lot of youngsters from down below, from Edendale, began to come up the valley and to encourage youngsters from here to join the UDF, particularly on the right-hand side of the road in that valley called Songozima. And a large number of the youth there joined the UDF and became amakabani, comrades. In fact, even a lot of the adults joined the UDF. About September, I think it was October, the 9th of October, David Ntombela, who was very much against the UDF, took a group of men and they went over towards that hill there, an area called Zondi Store, and they murdered in one of the houses there that night a woman and a child and a young man belonging to a house which was seen to be UDF. Shortly after that, Ntombela was arrested and he was released on bail, but then he fled from the area. And at that stage, those months of September, October, November, December, practically the whole area became UDF almost overnight, and Inkatha were really in retreat. 1990 was when Nelson Mandela was released, the ANC was unbanned, and that increased dramatically the tension between especially this part, top of the valley, and lower down. And then on the 25th of March 1990, that was a Sunday, we had the big rally in Durban. The buses on their way back were stoned. And then here on Monday and Tuesday, there were big Inkatha rallies, especially at Ntombela's place. Wednesday morning, the 28th, they summoned everybody from this area to his home. They set off from Ntombela's place down the valley and they began to attack the areas lower down. But then in the evening of the 29th, at about 9:30, there was an attack on this side here, Songozima. We came out here with the police. We went around these huts, which are just over the hill here, 4 homesteads that were burning. And we eventually found the 2 women who'd been murdered, and we took the children back. And as we took them back, as we drove into the mission, there's a crossroads there. That's where we met Ntombela and 2 white policemen. Ntombela heavily armed with ammunition belts and everything. 2 white policemen who said nothing. And we just explained to them what we'd seen and we drove on. And it was so extraordinary to me that they would be waiting for me there, whereas if they were really interested in what had happened, we would have met them there at the house. But we had been at the house about an hour and a half after the attack, and certainly we were the first people there, which makes a big question mark. Where were they?
Why were they waiting at the house?
What do you think? Because they had been there already. They were the ones who attacked those homesteads.
Despite these allegations and a number of witnesses seeing him shoot his own brother on Christmas Day 1984, Ntombela is at present a member of the provincial parliament.
Instruct us that although they are prepared to assist in giving their version of the events, they do not see their way clear to do so before this commission as constituted at present.
Thank you, Mr. Kutsu.
May I be excused? Thank you for the opportunity.
The crowd was clearly not satisfied with Ntombela's refusal to testify under the present TRC committee.
He's killing my father, Ibulele Ubaba no mama, and my brother too. In 7 days on 28 March. You know, I'm not that man. And Ntombela. I'm sick and tired.
The people of the Midlands are calling for justice, not revenge. All sides have buried their dead and are praying for a peaceful start to the new South Africa.
Of the families that were harmed by the tragedies throughout our country. We pray for that police families and ask your comfort for them. But dear Lord, as we look upon to you, we pray for peace, peace with you.
Pembagahle is a cultural and art initiative, and it emerged out of the province's violent past. Jabulani, he is the award-winning musician. With violence on a decrease, I see that all this should come to an end. All that is depressing us here in South Africa and in KwaZulu-Natal. All we should concentrate on is playing music, have festivals, forget about these things concerning violence. Let's just play music. Happy Valley sprung up as UDF victims fled from Inkatha strongholds. With NGO support of the refugees are making a new start.
What shocked me was that a ZP policeman, Mshengo, would during the day get together with Inkatha members and would chase us around. Sometimes they would run around, burning houses, and generally terrorize the neighborhood.
The Green Valley of Willowfontein, situated on the other side of Pietermaritzburg, is also home to many internal refugees.
After the 7 Days War, after the death of my mother, my child, and my fiancé in March 1990, when Ntombela attacked, burning houses in the Mnyandu, Shange, and Ashdown areas, I realized I had lost everything worthwhile in my life. The people of the Midlands did not only have to contend with violence, floods also took their toll. We suffered great losses after the floods, and our 6-roomed house fell apart, and we had to start afresh with building, and one is currently fixing the rest. Nothing remained except the clothes I had on.
Monica Wittenberg was recently commended for bravery by the TRC for her involvement with the Imbali support group.
We're sitting in a house here, the Gabela house, that has experienced unspeakable terror, even from 86 onwards, because Sipho, the son, was a UDF member and a spokesperson for the youth. But 89, Sipho was so severely injured by white policemen, and Mama Gabela and Baba Gabela were not allowed to come out of the door. Sipho was in the outbuilding. He was injured so badly, he was out of action for a whole year. Now, when this happened to the Gabela family, that was the last and very severe incident, Graham Swan, an African Enterprise member, said, well, no family can endure so much suffering. We must do something about it as churches. Now, there was the either we could, that was Graham Swan, he's a Canadian. There were two ideas. You could either evacuate the whole family to somewhere safe, like African Enterprise, which is a paradise of a place, or he had the idea to take a little suitcase and come stay here with the family. Now I'm a South African, that idea never came up with me. I was at home in the township daytime, but it never occurred to me to stay anywhere in a house at night. But Graham Swan, the Canadian, came up with this idea. And I remember when he put this idea to Baba Gabela, tears streamed down his cheeks. He said, "Is that possible that anybody can have such an idea? Please rather come to stay with us than evacuate the whole family." And Graham Swan, when he came here to this house with his little suitcase, the house was sitting full of neighbors. Mama Gabela, if I don't remember correctly, help me.
In fact, we were happy when they arrived because Inkatha had been harassing us and they were constantly attacking us. And when the support group came, we were pleased. We had hope and we could even have peace and even be able to sleep at night.
We had the good feeling it did help because we were able to give a lot of evidence, especially also to overseas people, and that is what they hated that time. We had several incidents in the night with groups being very... now the Afrikaans word comes to my mind, standing and the police there, and I remember one shouting at me, "Get out of this area," and I said, "I'm not getting out of this area until I see that this tension is diffused." And they didn't know how to cope with a person that wouldn't obey orders. And still, I wasn't a dangerous person, obviously not. And not being intimidated by them also unnerved them. They are used to people being scared of them. Anyway, they wanted to chase me out. They all had pointed guns. Then they said this crowd must be controlled. At one stage, I said, "Leave that to me." Sorry, it sounds like I am conceited, but I said, "Leave that to me," and they actually did leave it to me. And I said to the people, "Can I ask you to quietly go home? I'll stand here until I see all of you have gone home, and then I'll leave." And it helped. People dispersed quietly, and the police, grumbling, grudgingly stepped into their vehicle, and I stepped into mine. Everybody went their way.
Little Natingcobo was only 4 years old when he witnessed the violent murder of his father. He lives with this horror every day.
I'm Dudu Ngcobo. We used to stay in Mbali Township, Section 2. We used to be constantly harassed by the police. And on their visit, they would ask what the surname of the household was. And I told them we were Ngcobos. On one of their visits, they inquired what my husband's tribe was, and we explained. And then they said this is definitely the household they were searching for. They wanted to know where the boys were, and I said there were none in that house. I explained that I stayed alone with the children and that there were no boys who stayed in the house. After that, I never had peace. They would come at night and I heard noises and I would hear footsteps outside. I was always thankful at sunrise that I was still alive. One Sunday, I went to church with my younger child, and this one remained behind with his father in the house. At 12:30, I noticed a relative of mine arriving in church. I wondered. She had come to tell me to come home immediately. When I inquired why, she told me that this child and his father had been shot but had managed to escape. I did not believe her. I was definitely sure I'd find corpses, so I ran to the house. On my way, I met 3 young men with guns, and they pointed them at me saying, "This is the woman from that house." I could already hear sounds of destruction from my house. Blocks being smashed against windows, my sofas being destroyed. I had chickens. They were all shot. When I got home, I noticed my husband had managed to run away with this child. At home, there were already policemen in the yard. I wanted to know from them where my husband and the child were. They apparently didn't know and wanted to know from me where I was coming from. I explained that I was from church. The people that had attacked us were still around, moving up and down. I had to shield away from them even though there were policemen in the yard. They still wanted to shoot me, and all my neighbors had fled for their lives. Some houses were already burning, and I noticed that there were petrol containers also next to my house, and I still don't know what stopped them from burning my house. I had to seek refuge at Edendale, and I stayed there for a while at Ntutugo's place, my fiancé. I stayed there for a long time till he was also murdered, and I was heavily aggrieved. Thereafter, I moved to Georgetown and stayed there till I was able to come and settle here. I feel safer here compared to Imbali, where I used to live in fear and was not sure if I wasn't going to be killed at any time. Each day was a nightmare. I hope this place will always remain peaceful.
Baba wetu singabako